listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're with us. We're live at CKLU 96.7 FM. We're also streaming at cklu.ca on the internet, auditorially, and audio. We're also streaming in video at facebook.com/Sudbury News and youtube.com/Sudbury News. So as long as it's able to, with the new laws and the new policies, laws from the government, policies from social media. So far, so good in terms of having the show still on live and still being able to share the show. So we encourage you to comment on the show. As this, the whole intention of starting this Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift was to have a conversation about local and more far-reaching topics and how we felt about them, and try to make sense of things going on around us, whether they're nearby or abroad. So far, so good. As you can see, if you've been on the show for any length of time or seen it before, you know that there's varying views, sometimes polarizing views, and you would think that's just it's exactly what's going on in our society, and so that's exactly what's going to happen here on the show, right? So there's no different. People have different opinions, and that's the great thing about what we're still able to have for a while is our own opinion, and we hope that we'll continue to be able to have it for as long as we possibly can. Anyways, not that all indications point to it's probably not going to last for a long time, but while it's still here, we're here for a good time, not a long time, I guess. And we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that later. Tomorrow's show, talking about health in particular, and so there's what's going on. I think the United States are looking at going more back to the way it was the last few years, mask mandates and lockdown type measures, looking forward to the flu season in the fall. And so with that, YouTube has come out with their policy on censorship with health-related videos, and they're just going to take anything down that doesn't go along with your local health unit or the WHO, the World Health Organization. It'll just be one message. Anything else will be taken off. So there's not going to be any room for anybody's alternative views there. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Today we got enough to talk about. There's local news, and then there's also Shane will be joining us a little bit later for a discussion. I should, speaking of that, I need to kind of open it up so he can come in. Without that, he wouldn't have been able to. So with that, local news, we'll be talking about a few things, including what we left off yesterday, the whole idea of the UN being the goal setter for our municipalities. Should that be something that we adopt, or should we have more of a grassroots movement? There's a counselor down near Peterborough who is part of a movement to have a more grassroots, community-based, community-say kind of culture in our communities, instead of just adopting all of these global agendas and goals. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Bill C-11, Bill C-18, and what that's doing to us. Jordan Peterson as well. The court's ruling is supposed to come out today, whether or not he needs re-education from, I forget the exact, the Ontario College of Psychologists, or the College of Psychologists of Ontario. So they're basically trying to get him to take re-education classes on what he believes in and his personal views and what he shares on social media. So he said, no, I don't think that you should have the right to do that. And he is taking them to court. And so the courts are supposed to have the ruling today, whether or not he has to go through that or not. So that's pretty interesting. We'll have more on that and much more when we come back, and we'll have morning salutations and stuff. As we have more people jumping on, we'll start off with the weather. We'll be right back after this. All right, currently it is 14 degrees. There is light rain out there. Today we can expect cloudy with a 60% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorm early this morning. It's not going to wait till the afternoon this time. High of 17, UV index 5 or moderate. Tonight, partly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Low of 13 Thursday. Cloudy with a 60% chance of showers. The high will be 20, the UV index 5. And look at your long range again. Tomorrow, 60% chance of showers, high of 20. 30% chance of showers on Friday, 19 degrees. And then, something I haven't seen for quite a while, for the rest of the 4-day forecast, sunny for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. High of 21, 23, 23, and 23 for the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So that, to me, is good news. We can get out there and enjoy the weather if you can, because summer, it's already the 23rd of August. I mean, teachers are already going back, getting ready for their classes. So, the back to school is already kind of in the works. And here's a look at your satellite. It's a lot of activity going on over Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, making its way from the northwest down through us. And so after this is gone, sunny ways, not to quote a particular leader of a country, but we'll have sunny ways for the next 4 days after Friday. And that's your weather forecast, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with much, much more, including Shane will be joining us momentarily to discuss the things we talked about a little bit yesterday and more right after this. Okay, and we are back. Thanks for joining us. We have a few more people who have hopped on since the beginning. I'd just like to give a shout out for those that are already chiming in. Judy, good morning. Happy hump day, everyone. Good morning, Judy. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. Good morning. Fate whispers to a warrior. This is Belinda. You cannot withstand the storm. The warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Hey, that's awesome. That's a little deeper than the usual tidbits you have each and every morning. I love that one. With these mandates, they may or may not happen. I'm hoping people unite and do not comply this time around. We could use the backup. Well, yes, I think there's too many people out there that want it. I think all you need is 20% and you're good. 20% is all you need to get something done, because then there's 20% that are adamant, and then they strong arm, the people that are indecisive. So then it creates a majority, and then there's a minority, a small fringe minority, not to quote the same person who I quoted earlier, that are standing up against it, and then they're demonized by a supposed majority, and that's the way it goes. We saw that already, right? We saw that as it took place. That was a playbook, by the way, and it went quite well for those that implemented it. It went pretty much the way planned. Trevor, do not comply, with a maple leaf. Love that. I'd like to find where that emoji is. Thanks for chiming in, Trevor. Maurice, good morning. Happy face. Trevor says, resist Agenda 2030. And it's all there for people to read, right? It's funny, people calling other people conspiracy theorists when they talk about these agendas from the UN and other global organizations, and they just put them on their website. You just have to read them. And then you hear our politicians who we elect quoting direct from these papers and these agendas and things and implementing them in our country. And you say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. And these are educated people who read. I just don't know why they don't read those documents that are there. I don't know. Cognitive dissonance, I guess. Tracy, good morning to all. And sunshine emoji, which is coming to a city near us very soon. Good morning, Sudbury. Truly time to wake. Okay. That's Jerome. Wake up. Good morning, Pauline. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you caught the weather. There's a lot of good news there for the 4 days after Friday. Boy, oh boy. Sunny, 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 and sunny. I haven't seen that in a while. So speaking of that, our website is now up and running and working. It works, it doesn't work, it works, it doesn't work. Meanwhile, I don't change anything. So we're not sure what's going on behind the scenes, but quite a bit of local stuff going on here. As we will have Shane joining us momentarily. Looking forward to that. Just run through a few of the stories that we see here on Sudbury.news. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a news aggregator. It's something that we can use in the wake of this new Bill C-11, Bill C-18, the Online News Act, Meta's and Google's response to it by not sharing Canadian news. At least you have a place where it's all aggregated in one place, right? So Sudbury Health Unit warns of dangers of uninspected food premises. Such premises may not meet provincial regulatory food safety requirements and may place the health of patrons at risk. So I guess you can just see if they got a paper there saying it was inspected. Feds to consider caps on international study permits as housing crisis grows. That's from Sean Fraser. Acknowledged the housing crisis is a complex problem rooted in decades of underinvestment, particularly in social housing, so government housing. So the government's response to the increasing population by previous Liberal and Conservative governments alike, not just one party. So they're going to be filming on Kathleen Street. So there's a road report that if you live around Kathleen or you take that to get anywhere, anytime, you might want to check out that story from the Sudbury Star and when that will be taking place. Barbecue raising funds for a man who needs life-saving drug. The event to take place at Dixon Electric on Lorne Street on Friday. Apparently this cancer drug costs like $20,000, something like that. You know, it's very expensive. And we have our socialized healthcare system. You would think everything's paid for, but no, not everything is paid for. Just certain things. And I wonder who decides what's paid for and what's not paid for in our healthcare system. Laurentian land-based cultural course has life-changing impact. So an Indigenous immersion course recently brought students from various Laurentian University undergraduate programs together for 8 days of land-based programming on the Nisquamish Native Friendship Center grounds. That's from Sudbury.com. More than 250 people have died in collisions in Ontario so far this year, including 9 in the last 7 days, says Sergeant Kerry Schmidt. OPP urges drivers to make better decisions after a deadly week. So yes, be careful while you're out there driving in this last week of August, as we are getting more and more towards September and the fall. I know a lot of people are already counting down the for Christmas, which I can't believe we're already doing that. Mayor Paul Lefebvre says he has no intention of using strong mayor powers. Rather than pursue strong mayor powers afforded to him by the province, Mayor Paul Lefebvre said he'll continue working with his colleagues on city council to achieve housing goals. I don't have any intention of using it, Lefebvre told Sudbury.com. I want to be driving consensus and certainty, collaboration. So I have no intention of going down that path, Lefebvre spoke to Sudbury.com by phone. From the Association of Municipalities annual general meeting in London, where Premier Doug Ford announced the expanded powers, strong mayor powers they allow heads of council greater authority to make decisions as long as they are dealing with provincial priorities, such as getting more housing built. Only needing 1/3 council support, those with strong mayor powers can set budgets as well as veto and pass bylaws. Lefebvre says there's shared belief among the city's elected officials that there is a housing crisis in Greater Sudbury, transitional housing and traditional bungalows. We need more. Also included in yesterday's announcement from the province was a series of provincially set housing targets for various Ontario municipalities. Greater Sudbury's target was set to 3,800 units by 2031, which Lefebvre said he is optimistic they will be able to achieve. So I always thought that was interesting, this whole giving mayors more power. I thought, we had our municipalities kind of governance already set up. So not sure why they need more powers, but as long as the province, there's things that the province wants to get put forward, they give the mayors more power so they can get their agenda. Speaking of higher governments wanting to get agendas put forward, that's something we're going to be talking about today, and not having municipalities making their own decisions. Well, Paul Lefebvre, so far, so good, says he's not going to use these. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest star today. Shane, how's it going, Shane?
I am rocking on till the break of dawn.
Love it. Positive, very positive. So, we spoke a little bit yesterday what we were talking about today, and then here we have, the mayor saying he is not going to take on these extra powers that are afforded to him. Do you see that sticking forever, or do you think there's going to be at some point something where he's going to have to say, well, you know what, just because the situation is the way that it is, I'm going to have to invoke these special powers? Do you see him constantly just kind of not taking these upon himself, or do you think that's going to change in the future?
It's hard to say. I mean, we're talking about a guy whose former boss was Trudeau himself. So we'll see. I mean, so far, so good. Credit where credit is due. The less power, the better.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll just wait and see.
It's true. Now, so I guess we're going to divert from that. And I did queue up this, no pun intended, queue up this story that Dave wanted us to talk about. So I got it already. It's in the Sioux today.
And I've got a story for him, by the way.
Oh, good.
He brings up the forest fires every day.
Yeah.
And,
good.
He's going to love this one.
Good. Okay, that's awesome. So we'll get to the QAnon conspiracy for Dave first, if I can find it now. I had it, so it was in my email. So it's not there. So did I move it over here? Did I move it? No. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Sioux today. So we'll get that in the bottom third here. So the headline says, QAnon's Queen of Canada sets up camp in the Sioux. Online conspiracist Ramona Didelot, infamous for burning a Canadian flag during Ottawa's Freedom Convoy and encouraging her supporters to arrest police officers, has established a base on Landslide Road last weekend in the Sioux. One of the most recognized names in the online conspiracy group QAnon is believed to be in Sault Ste. Marie this weekend, proclaiming herself as the Queen of Canada. Ramona Didelot and several of her supporters have set up a fenced-in base on Landslide Road near the corner of Fish Hatchery Road within the last 48 hours. This is a few days ago, this article, though, so I think it's already came and went. Didelot's rise in the far-right QAnon movement peaked during the pandemic when her followers began handing out cease and desist letters across Canada on her behalf, demanding an end to all COVID-related restrictions. The self-proclaimed queen has even called her followers to execute healthcare workers, politicians, and other dignitaries who support the vaccine. Oh my goodness, that's pretty drastic. I did not know. She has also issued decrees that she claimed cancel people's debts. As a result, some followers have had their water or electricity shut off or lost their homes. January 22, Didelot was recorded burning a Canadian flag on Parliament Hill during the so-called Freedom Convoy rally in Ottawa. So what was that called anyways? Because this reporter is saying the so-called Freedom Convoy rally. So I don't know what other name is for it if it's so-called.
Yeah, the trucker protest.
What's the official name? Well, they should put the official name when they say so-called. They should say the real name of it was this, if there is indeed a real name. So you see a little bit of bias in there, but holy crap! This whole I never heard of this person, but if someone's calling for execution of people, I think that's way extreme, no matter what. So thanks, Dave, for letting us know about this so we could share it with everybody.
No, I'd love to see the direct quotes.
Yeah, well, true, right?
Execution and things like that.
Yeah.
Like I've seen at least one interview with the so-called QAnon shaman. I watched the one with Michael Malice, and look, I think the guy is pretty nutty, but you listen to him speak, and he just sounds like so normal, like compared to how the media paints him. So yeah, I
found that too. And let's just say for the record, I never liked Donald Trump before, never did. I actually had this repelling feeling from him when he was, just known as this kind of playboy billionaire, and from New York and all the things he was involved in. Good morning, Monique. Thanks for joining us. I know there's a lot of comments coming in here. Oh, yeah. Tracy says it should be called the Fringe Minority is the official name of the convoy, that is. But I remember Donald Trump, just being kind of repelled by his personality and everything, just saying, I don't know about this guy. And then he had that show, the where he fired people, The Apprentice. You're fired. And again, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. You're fired, and he's all like, whatever. Good morning. Maid has been around forever. Okay. Thanks, Michael. Probably commenting to somebody's other comment, but good morning nonetheless. And thanks for sending me the link by messenger. It was really awesome. Appreciate it. So then he runs for president, and everyone says, well, he's not going to win, which they are all wrong, right? He won. And but immediately the media did something I never thought was possible before, that just went on an attack for the next 4 years, just constantly attacking him. And the reason why I bring this up is because you said, I'd like to hear what these people really said. And so what I found, when the media would take clips of what Donald Trump would say and said he was racist or this, that, and the other, he says this about people with disabilities and all this. And then I was like, wow, that's terrible. Like, who's saying things like this? But then I actually looked into it and I heard the full clip and I was like, he didn't say that. It has nothing to do with what he said. And so you can tell the media, they were really fixated on making this guy sound the way they wanted. They made up this character, just taking him out of context. And again, I don't know where I stand on him even after he was president. I think if you look at his record, as far as presidents are, and you compare him to presidents in the past, which is what we should be doing, because that's what he was supposed to be doing, being a president, not being, this social icon or whatever that people, have opinions about. But his record looked pretty okay to me compared to any other presidents, if that's what we're indeed going to do and compare apples to apples and without all the emotional stuff. But yeah, we got to look at what people say. We can't just be taking clips, and you, with a background in journalism, you can appreciate that, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it'd be really great. And now you said you had something else for Dave this morning on the wildfires.
Yeah, so I came across this article, not from True North, not from Rebel News, not even from Fox News, but from the Washington Post.
Oh, the Washington Post.
This is the headline: Maui fires not just due to climate change, but to compound disaster. What? You right-wing extremist. So
maybe they're turning around at the National Post. I don't know. Some other.
So so this is the Washington Post.
The Washington Post.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but so here's a quote: "If you add together a whole bunch of influences, that's how you get a disaster," said Jeff Masters, a meteorologist for Yale Climate Connections. "No one thing makes it happen." And there's a lot of great quotes near the end of the article. As for the drought conditions that covered more than a third of Maui County, where the most destructive fires burned, there is no direct sign that they are the product of climate change, said Abby Fraser, an affiliate faculty member at the University of Hawaii, now based at Clark University in Massachusetts. I can't speak.
Massachusetts.
While there is a long-term trend of declining precipitation in Hawaii, there isn't enough evidence to suggest that is the product of anything besides normal climate patterns and fluctuations in the Pacific, she said, and on it goes. And it repeats it several times that this is not necessarily the product of climate change.
No.
So climate change is not my area, but I'm leaning on some experts here who are saying that other factors need to be considered.
For sure. No, that's the holistic way to look at things, and that's what real journalism should be doing too, right? But I think there's a politicized, weaponized, there's a movement, there's agendas out there that really have things to gain if they push forward the climate extremism agenda, right? Like there are people, there's activists everywhere, right? If people just made toothpicks, there'd be toothpicks lobbyists and activists to make sure the toothpick market stayed. And climate change is an industry now. It's an industry, and it can also push forward political agendas. And so if you can see something can work in your favor and you adopt it to allow you to get things through that you want to have done, you'll use that, right? So if climate change can be a vehicle to get a goal achieved, it will be used. And I think it has been, and we can kind of, we smell the smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And that is, it's politicized, weaponized, politicized, both by some in the scientific community who have things to gain by it, and in obviously politicians, because they can get things passed and get things done by using that as a reason. Now, is it happening? I think we all agree it is happening, right? Still, we don't know all the reasons why, and we do know that it's been happening for as long as the Earth has been around, as long as we know that there's been climate, it's always been changing, and it's no different now. So that we can all agree on. So we can at least agree on that before we start getting emotional and our heart starts racing, we start sweating and whatever. That at least we can all agree on that. Now, Now, where man comes in, we don't know how much man is affecting the change. And there's no scientist who can prove that. There's claims out there, there's theories like anything, but no one can claim that. And one thing I thought, the Maui fire, as devastating as it is, did you know there was a book published 2 days after it came out that was already published and on Amazon about, it says Dr. Miles Stone's Fire and Fury book sparks alarm for being published 2 days after Maui fires began. So were you aware of that?
No, I hadn't heard that.
So I'm like right away, I hope this proves that it was planned and, there's some big thing behind it. And no, there's not. It's just this kind of doctor guy who no one can find, who's written other books too. Since the wildfires started in Hawaii earlier this month, nonsense conspiracy theories about space lasers have been rampant on social media. But one of the weirdest phenomena related to the tragedy, here, I'll just share this on the screen, is it's currently happening on Amazon, a book called Fire and Fury, the story of the 2023 Maui fire and its implications for climate change, since you brought up climate change, by Dr. Miles Stones, has attracted a lot of interest in recent days, thanks to it largely being published just 2 days after the fires began on August the 8th. The book, which comes in a whopping 44 pages, is currently listed as a bestseller in the natural disasters section of Amazon and is available on Kindle and has a 1-star rating too. So it's a pretty good read. It's available on Kindle and in paperback editions. The book's description reads as follows: Fire and Fury, the story of the Maui fire and its implications for climate change, is a gripping and eye-opening account of one of the most devastating fires in Hawaii's history and how it reveals the urgent need to address the global climate crisis. So anyways, how did it come out 2 days? It was still going on, for goodness sakes, while this book comes out. And then some people looked into it, and this guy has written other books like on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and things like this that were like dispelling conspiracy theories and that. And then, so no one can find this Dr. Miles Stones anywhere. He's not a real person, but he's written 17 books. So anyways, just stuff like that's floating out there. I just thought it was interesting, just in case someone latches onto this and say, it proves that, people knew it was happening before it happened. Similar to the COVID-19 Great Reset Klaus Schwab book that came out, I think, just right at the beginning of the pandemic, which means it was already written before the pandemic started. So how do you write a book about the COVID-19 Great Reset before COVID-19 is even known by anybody? So I thought it was similar to that, but it looks like, no, it's not exactly that. But anyways, I just thought I would share that with everyone. So many comments coming in. Shane can't keep up, so I'll try and get them up on the screen. So those on the radio, just to let everyone know, that you can come on Facebook Live and you can comment in the comment section, and not always, but we do try to get everybody's comments read now that there's so many, which is a good thing, a good problem to have. We'll get them up on the screen. So let's say you're driving to work, you're listening to the show, and you're just wondering what other people had to say about the conversations we're having. You can watch the show afterwards on Facebook or YouTube, and you can get everyone's comments, and you can continue later. Good morning from McCarroll. That's Lynn. I like to get the good mornings in, though, if somebody, just to acknowledge as they're coming on. But anyways, yeah, so you can see what everybody is saying after the show, and then you can continue the conversation after the show is done. I just had to get that in, Shane. So
Sure. And I'm glad that Stephen is watching, because I want to remind him that last time he was on, and I'm not trying to be combative, I'm sure Stephen is a really nice guy, but
for sure,
last time he was on, he said that he was conservative and you were far right.
Okay.
When he said that he was conservative, that really took me aback, because I've never seen him say anything that's even remotely conservative. Like everything he says is just a liberal talking point to me. So I asked him, like, what makes him conservative, and what makes you far right? I asked him several times and he hasn't responded. So maybe he could respond today. That would be great.
Oh, cool. Well, we'll give him a chance to gather his thoughts. I'm sure he'll come back on that, and I'll hopefully catch that because my eyesight isn't the greatest. So, as I know, a lot of people comment on a lot of different things, right? So he could be commenting on something different as well. So yeah, latest thing he did says Klaus Schwab's book wasn't about COVID-19 virus specifically.
Well, wasn't it called COVID-19, the Great Reset, or something?
Yeah, it was
Like
called
actually
that.
had COVID-19 in the title.
Yeah, and I downloaded it right away. Because so many people were talking about it, what it said, so I downloaded it and read it because I didn't want to take what everyone else was saying about it, which happens so much in our world. We just see headlines and then we go off. And I think that's what the powers that be bank on, the fact that we don't really research things. We just take what we're told and we don't look into it. We don't think, we don't critically think, because critically thinking is a thing. It's like you got to learn how to do it. I don't think it naturally happens for a lot of us. And it's a skill and you have to practice it. And part of it is researching. You hear something, then you look into it for yourself, just like I did with this. I thought, oh, I got it now. Somebody knew that these fires were going to happen ahead of time. And no, it turned out to be just a guy probably wrote the book from Chat GPT, and published it and made a lot of money off of it, So Stephen, let's see if he's answering your question. He says, that's not combative. When did you ask me? In the threads or previous shows?
The day of the show that I was on, and then probably the day after again or something like that. I'll to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think some of the replies in the comments disappear sometimes. Like you get a notification that somebody responded to you, and you click on it, and it goes nowhere. So.
There were people who didn't believe that. I said that the other day on the show. I said, when I go back and I try to read all the comments, it gives you categories. It says most recent comments, something else, real-time comments. I can choose which comments I want. And then there's a category that says all comments. And a lot of times that all comments category is not available. It's just not even there. So I can pick real-time comments, which after the show, they're done. So there's 0. I can pick most recent comments, which will just show the ones that just came in recently. Oh, most relevant comments too. So that's the one that Facebook loves, the most relevant comments. That's the one they have on default because that's the ones they deem, or their AI algorithms deem, to be the most relevant comments. So you see the kind of AI manipulation of conversations. Even though we're having a conversation, they're able to take that and take out other comments that they don't deem relevant. Like, who's deeming these relevant conversations? How can you even have a category relevant comments? Like, is that Orwellian in and of itself? And who's deciding what's relevant or not?
Right.
But it's a category they have, and it's the default one, the most relevant comments. But so at least I have a witness that sometimes the comments are gone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it could be really
They're just
long.
gone. Yeah. Okay, good. So you're on the show yesterday. You saw the video that I played from this city councilor from near Peterborough, and the grassroots movement that they have to combat communities just going along with UN type agenda stuff in their small communities, and letting the UN do all their policy making for them and achieving all the UN goals. They said, hey, why can't we just do that, for ourselves? And so, okay, so there you go. So did you have a chance to look into that at all since the show yesterday? I know I shared it on our Facebook feed.
Yeah, very briefly. I haven't
Okay.
really had much of a chance to look into it more, but
Now, were you aware that the UN, since I think the 90s and maybe the 80s, were very, very hyper-focused on getting into smaller communities rather than top down. They said, hey, the way to get it done is to get in to the cities and work ground up.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where we hear a lot of these sustainable goals. Did you know, I think Sudbury is in a climate crisis. They declared a climate emergency right now. We're in a climate emergency in Sudbury. It's been declared, I believe, still. Were you aware of that?
I think I probably heard of that. And yeah, I mean, judging by this how the summer has gone, I'd like to see where the emergency is here locally
Yeah.
because I'm kind of, as a beach bum, I'm kind of hoping that global warming will hit us a little bit more before the end of summer. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So I believe we declared a climate emergency here. Now we declared, obviously, in the last health epidemic that we had, we declared a health emergency for quite some time, and that stuck for a long time. But it seemed like communities are in lockstep, right? Like they all do them together. It's like, it's not individual. It's we're doing them together as with other communities. And so what's driving that, So we found it. So this particular movement's called KIC, LEI, Kicking International Council Out of Local Government Initiatives. So become a delegate. You can email gather2030 at protonmail.co if you want to become a delegate. Thank the council and stand behind them. So they have, this is down in their town, Peterborough area. They have everybody listed, the councillors, the mayor. They have, you can submit concerns for the official plan, 2050 PTBO county, Peterborough and whatever county. And they have a link there. So problem, solutions, so table of contents, all the things they're talking about. The problem is that in 1994, the UN sent a 40-page non-binding municipal primer to our municipalities. This served as an instruction manual to implement the UN takeover. Territorially speaking, Canada is made up of small towns and small town councils. The UN agenda drives all future growth to quote-unquote settlement areas and away from small towns and rural areas. You've heard about that, right? That there's this movement to bring everybody into cities rather than stay in the country. So that was one of their goals. To counter this agenda and take back our country, we must redirect our efforts to small towns and rural advocacy. Hashtag take back towns, take back the North. Solution. The KIC LEI booklet will serve as an instruction manual to undo the UN takeover of our municipalities and kick the ICLEI, the International Council on Environment Initiatives, out of local issues. This work is ongoing. It's an ongoing collaboration of individual efforts and accumulated knowledge. This first edition will initiate nationwide delegations. The second edition will be more detailed. Short story. So Maggie Brown discovered the UN global climate hoax in 2008 while taking ecosystems management. Years later, with 15-minute cities on Canadian doorsteps, the work of Sheila McFarland, mayoral candidate of Guelph in 2021, came across her desk. Sheila's work, particularly the UN takeover through the ICLEI and the municipal primer, was the basis of Maggie's original speech to Peterborough City Council. Maggie Braun, who I got this from her website, she is the counselor who did that video we shared on our show yesterday, and John Dunn formed a delegation to Peterborough Town Council June the 26th, 2023. This delegation went viral, awakening thousands to the UN takeover of municipalities. On July 20th, 2023, guess who visited Peterborough to see if he could maybe change their minds? Premier Justin Trudeau landed in Peterborough to meet with Mayor Jeff Leal, CEO Jasper Reyna, and the MS mainstream media reporter for City Hall. On August the 1st, 2023, Maggie spoke to Douro Dummer Council and regarding the UN-driven official plan 2050, a death sentence to their township. 65 locals filled the room. The councillors agreed that the plan was a death sentence to the lower tier municipalities and halted the official plan 2050 for all Peterborough councils. So they have a bunch of links here that people can search out and whatever. And how far down this road do you think Sudbury is, or how far entrenched do you think Sudbury is with all of this stuff from your maybe even limited knowledge? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the political class in our city are totally on board with that agenda. And it's time that we realize that these elitist organizations and institutions don't have our best interests in mind. Like, why do we want these people to control our lives? How is this making our lives better?
Yeah, for sure. We have to ask these questions, right? Or we even have to say, will it? Like, do we right away want to say, no, we don't want them? Can we even just say, well, let's look at what their goals are and why they're there? And don't you think it's odd that we're not even aware of this in some ways? Like with the mainstream media that we have, with the watchdogs for our community from the CBC, Sudbury.com, CTV Northern Ontario, Sudbury Star. Do you think there'd be more, news on this so people would be more aware of this kind of going on in our community politically?
Right. And that just opens up the door that when you bring it up, it's like, that's a conspiracy theory because it's not being covered in mainstream media. So like, what are you talking about? Like,
well, yeah, that's the thing.
Out of nowhere.
And I think media's responsibility would be to ask these questions themselves, right? Say, well, there's this agenda that's going on, this new sustainability goals, but they seem to just catch on to the buzzwords and just perpetuate what the UN's talking points are in their stories, is what I found. Right. All these great initiatives to be greener, be more sustainable, all these wonderful words, but they're buzzwords and they're keywords and they're talking point words from the UN, and they mean something deeper than what we initially think they mean. Like they actually come with a bite. They mean something for us. It's not just, make sure you recycle, make sure you compost.
Yeah.
We'll
have to head to work.
Okay. Well, thanks, Shane. Thanks for being with us today. I really appreciate it. I was hoping we can get into Bill C11, Bill C18, but maybe next time.
For sure.
Let's do that. Well, have a great day at work, Shane. Thanks for being with us. Much appreciated.
All right. Take care.
Awesome as usual. Take care, Shane. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too.
Awesome. Okay. That was Shane. He's joins us every once in a while here on Sudbury News Talk. That was the second time, actually, and look forward to having him back, as he does have a journalistic background. Great to have his perspective on the show, as some people claim that this is not really news-based. It's all opinion, right? But it's opinions on news and what we're making. Yeah, I'm not a journalist. I am the host and facilitator of a conversation who has a communications and public relations background. So I am educated in in what it is to, messaging and packaging and formulating words to influence people. And I see that in our mainstream media. Noel says, the corruption is built into the international standards organizations and all such international organizations. The plans were laid in the 1970s. Yeah, for sure. Lots happened in the 1970s, for sure. And now we see things going on in our media as we're starting to, the internet's been around. We were hoping it was really transparent. And now, for some reason, the federal government thought, we really need to pay these journalists because for some reason they're not being paid enough. We're paying them. And maybe that's not a good thing, which it isn't, because then they can't really report on us unbiasedly because we're paying them. Here's a take on a Canadian a Canadian YouTuber who his thoughts on this. It was about 10 days ago, so things have transpired since then. But since Shane and I weren't able to talk about it, good morning, Vin. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being with us. A little bit late to the party, but not nonetheless. You're getting to the good stuff here. This is JJ McCullough. He's talking about the Bill C-11, Bill 18, and the online news app.
Hello friends, my name is JJ, and a bit of an unusual video for you this week, and not one I originally planned on making. You know, I do not want this to be a channel where we just talk about whatever random thing is in the Canadian news this week, but this week in particular, there has been some news that I really do think is worth discussing. So, you've all heard me talk ad nauseum about Bill C-11, but while I've been fixating on that, there has been another bill called Bill C-18, which is proving just as consequential, if not arguably perhaps more. Bill C-18 is basically the Trudeau government's project to save the Canadian news media. But without putting too fine of a point on it, the bill is so ill-conceived and proving to be so counterproductive in practice that it is actually throwing the future of the free press in Canada into doubt. So let me just give you a little bit of background here. Basically, it is very difficult to make money in the Canadian news industry. You can take my word for it because I've had several jobs working in Canadian journalism, and every single time I have been laid off for explicitly financial reasons. You know, Canada has plenty of newspapers and news magazines and news TV channels, but they are generally all chronically losing money. I think there's quite a lot of reasons why they are finding it hard to turn a profit. You know, Canada is a relatively small media market. I think a lot of Canadians are just not that interested in Canadian news. I would argue that the quality of a lot of Canadian journalism is quite low when compared to the quality of journalism you can get in the States. There are also lots of barriers to foreign ownership of news media in Canada, which has probably prevented a lot of international capital from keeping some of these failed enterprises afloat. You know, I'm sure that there are a lot of internal financial decisions in the way that some of Canada's big newspapers and things have been run that are probably also causing some of the hardship as well. But for whatever the reason, the simple fact is, yes, it is very difficult to make money if you're in the business of Canadian news in the year 2023. I feel like the only thing we've really sort of seen approximating a strategy on the industry side has been greater and greater mergers. You know, I once talked to a newspaper guy who compared this to kind of, you know, a vampire finding more and more victims to suck blood from. There's a big story in the Canadian media right now about sort of the two largest surviving Canadian newspaper conglomerates are now proposing to merge. Both of these enterprises are suffering financially, so this makes a lot of sense. But anyway, in the context of this dire climate, the Trudeau administration comes along and says, never fear, we can save the day. Maybe government is the helping hand that a failing news industry needs. But you know, this raises all sorts of philosophical concerns of its own. The news media reports on the government, so we don't necessarily want these two parties in bed together. And so what happens is that the government and the Canadian news media get together and start aggressively pushing a narrative in which the failure of the Canadian news media is blamed on a very unsympathetic villain, which is the big American tech companies. Okay, so now what I'm going to say is not going to make any sense to you, so just be prepared. But what happens is that the Canadian media companies and the Canadian government begin pushing this line that the reason why the Canadian news media is failing is because the big American tech companies, specifically the social media companies, are actively stealing Canadian news. You know, when you go onto social media, Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you start scrolling down your feed, you'll often see links to news stories that your friends or family are sharing. And this supposedly is the great theft that we're seeing. These sinister tech companies are allowing people to take content from Canadian news websites and distribute it on their platforms. And then the media companies say that this fact is causing them, you know, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars in lost revenue, and this is the reason why they can't make any money. Again, this really does not make any sense at all, because obviously the purpose of sharing a link is to get users of that social media to go and visit the website that that link is from. And the media companies obviously know this, which is why they themselves have active social media accounts that do nothing but post links to their own content on Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it all day long. But anyway, despite the lack of logic, this is the argument that is now enshrined in Canadian law via Bill C-18. The main thing that Bill C-18 does is it mandates the big tech companies negotiate some sort of fair compensation with the Canadian media companies, you know, based on the premise that the Canadian media companies are deserving some sort of compensation. It is sort of conceptually similar to, you know, an employer negotiating with a union to come up with fair compensation for the workers. And again, similar to sort of how labor relations work, Bill C-18 gives the Canadian government the power to impose some sort of deal if the two parties cannot negotiate one themselves. The legislation literally uses a lot of labor-style terminology, you know, bargaining, arbitration, and so on. Now, the tech companies, as you might imagine, do not accept the core premises of this bill, which is again the idea that they owe the Canadian media companies some sort of fair compensation for the fact that links to media company content is freely provided on their platforms. You know, the Minister of Canadian Heritage, who has sort of been the point man on this particular legislative file, he loves to use the line that the tech companies have to pay their fair share. Very sort of delightfully Randian turn of phrase. But it is very Randian in the sense that one of the main arguments that the Canadian media companies have made is just that the big sort of social media platforms are hogging all of the ad revenue that the internet has to offer. I've heard the numbers thrown around that like 80 to 90% of all advertising on the internet these days is just done on a couple of the big sort of tech platform websites. And then so the Canadian media companies are just like, hey, we deserve a share of that. And then the Canadian government is like, yes, pay your fair share. But yes, anyway, so the tech companies lobbied very, very hard against this legislation when it was sort of going through the parliamentary pipeline. But it passed anyway and was signed into law just a couple of days ago. And
so that's JJ and his take on the whole Bill C-11, Bill 18 fiasco. I just wanted to say thanks for being with us, everyone. We are done. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU. Congratulations to Manitoulin Island. Let's see here. So Madison Kivalton, 25-year-old woman from Gore Bay on Manitoulin Island, has won the title of Miss Universe Canada 2023. So I just wanted to give a shout out and say congratulations to you for that. That's pretty awesome. And say have a great day. Really appreciate it. And have a good one. So Shane, you like him as a YouTuber, eh? I just found him the other day. I thought he was pretty cool. So thought his take on the Bill C-18, Bill C-11 was appropriate to play today. So yeah, have a great one, everyone. Thanks, Shane, for being on today. Much appreciated. Look forward to being with you. Hopefully again next Wednesday, but we'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow morning on CKLU and on Facebook, YouTube Live. Have a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow. Make sure to share. Take care. Ciao.
Is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.